In the lead up to the 2018 midterms, Republicans were campaigning on the slogan, "Jobs, not mobs." Well, as you probably know, the Democrats won the House on Tuesday night. By a narrow margin, mobs won, and these mobs went on to flex their muscle Wednesday night. Of course, as Americans and Europeans, we live in clown world. Or, if you subscribe to the J.O. Delaray worldview, piss earth. Either way, things are not as they should be. The America we live in today has nothing in common with the America that our grandparents grew up in. In the America of old, political disagreements were settled with argumentation and debate. In modern America, things aren't over, according to the left, until your opposition is murdered in the street or thrown in political prison. Well, hold on, m'lady. As a radical enlightened centrist who hates both sides, I'll have you know that this is nothing more than radical right-wing fear-mongering. In fact, I subscribe to a political theory known as radical centrist equestrianism. You know, all the people in the comments saying, this is nothing more than fear-mongering and trying to get a rise out of people. I wish you were right. I wish things really were as peaceful and civil as you insist they are, and I really wish that I was just some shock jock trying to get a rise out of people. But it is with great regret that I inform you that yes, I am right again. In 2015, we saw Black Lives Matter burn city blocks to the ground, block traffic, and attack counter-demonstrators, and even just bystanders. In 2016, we saw the left ramp it up and begin assaulting people for the great crime of attending Donald Trump rallies. Violence against Trump supporters at his rallies became increasingly commonplace. Just off the top of my head, I remember the scenes from the rallies in Arizona, Southern California, and Chicago, among others. We also saw the mainstreaming of campus violence against right-wing college speakers like Milo Yiannopoulos. And in 2017, we saw the left and Antifa kick it up a notch, engaging in open street combat with Trump supporters. I myself was one of many people injured at Trump's inauguration in January 2017. And we all remember Charlottesville, where unhinged leftist mobs used violence to try to shut down a legal, permitted free speech event. Surely, 2018 couldn't get any crazier, right? Yeah, it did, obviously. You see, violence against political opponents at rallies, that wasn't enough. Using any sort of right-wing public demonstration as an opportunity for IRL blood sports, no. Surely, we can go further. We can do more. As the slogan goes, yes, we can. And sure enough, in 2018, we have seen an explosion in violent rhetoric and actions from the left. Now, let's be specific. When they talk about violent rhetoric, they're talking about people misgendering trans people or quoting FBI crime statistics. When I talk about violent rhetoric, I'm talking about tweets from leftist professors, from blue checks saying that white men should be murdered and castrated. Or this tweet from a blue check leftist saying that white mothers pregnant with white sons should go and kill them. I will leave it up to you to decide which of those two examples is politically incorrect facts and which one is actual violent rhetoric. But of course, the escalation of the rhetoric and the speech wasn't enough. If you're going to talk the talk, you better be willing to walk the walk and escalate the out of an already divided country. Alright, so what specifically am I talking about? Of course, I'm referring to the story that broke Wednesday night about what happened to Tucker Carlson and his family. I posted a poll on Thursday asking which video I should do next. To my surprise, some people were actually very upset that I would talk about this, insisting that every other mainstream media news site is going to do a video about this. Why should you waste your time on this topic? You think the media is going to honestly and fairly cover this story of violence and terroristic threats being made against right-wing commentators? I wish. Wednesday evening, before Tucker went live at 8 p.m. Eastern, he was made aware of something going on at his house. A commotion, according to the Washington Post. When I think of a commotion, I think of a small disturbance or a light scuffle, not a crowd of angry, howling, screaming leftists shutting down the city block you live on and attempting to physically break their way into your home. Guess which one of those describes what happened Wednesday night? According to the Post article, I called my wife, Carlson told the Washington Post in a phone interview. She had been in the kitchen alone getting ready to go to dinner, and she heard pounding on the front door and screaming. Someone started throwing himself against the front door and actually cracked the front door. His wife, thinking it was a home invasion, locked herself in the pantry and called 911, Carlson said. The couple have 4 children, but none were home at the time. But it wasn't a home invasion. It was a protest. Just a protest. No big deal. No, actually, this is a big deal. The article continues, according to now deleted social media posts shared by Smash Racism DC, a local Antifa organization whose members have been tied to other demonstrations, I love it, against prominent Republican figures, activists showed up outside Carlson's home Wednesday, and they had a message for him. Tucker Carlson, we are outside your home, one person could be heard saying in the since deleted video. The person, using a bullhorn, accused Carlson of promoting hate and an ideology that has led to thousands of people dying. We want you to know, we know where you sleep at night, the person concluded, before leading the group to chant, Tucker Carlson, we will fight. We know where you sleep at night. You can call this a protest or a demonstration if you want, but it wasn't. In fact, home invasion is probably a more apt descriptor of what actually happened here. But none of those terms really encompasses what actually took place. Terrorism. This was, by definition, an act of terrorism. Terrorism is defined as the use of violence or the threat of violence to achieve political ends. Showing up to someone's house, trying to break down their door, and then chanting that you know where they sleep at night, that goes beyond the implication of violence. That is an actual threat. And as they stated, they were doing this because they are not happy with his political beliefs. Put two and two together, and it's pretty obvious to me that this is not just an example of the unhinged left that we've been talking about in recent days. This is an example of the terrorist left. Every one of these demonstrators, terrorists, should be rounded up and imprisoned. If we lived in a serious country, every one of these demonstrators, terrorists, would be rounded up and imprisoned. What do you think would have happened if this mob had been successful at breaking down Tucker's door? What do you think this mob would have done if they had broken through and found Tucker Carlson's wife, unarmed, alone in her home? 20 plus masked Antifa versus one woman in her 50s, a woman that they see as an enabler and beneficiary of white supremacy. Do you think they're going to put on a pot of coffee and have a discussion, have an argument? This goes beyond just the mob showing up and attacking his home, even though that is insane on its own. Additionally, on the video taken at the protest, one of the protesters can be heard saying that she wishes she had brought a pipe bomb to bring to Tucker's home. Can you imagine for a moment if even one right-winger had been breaking down doors or discussing pipe bombs outside the house of a leftist journalist? The FBI would be all over that in seconds. And we would have article after article after article blaming Trump, blaming the right for the heated escalation of rhetoric in Trump's America. It's so weird because I consider myself to be fairly informed, but I've missed all the stories about far-right activists showing up to the homes of leftist journalists, attempting to break their doors down and threatening their families. Perhaps I just need to get more educated. It's important to not just see this incident in a vacuum. This is just another example of leftist escalation in American politics. Arguments are not going to get you anywhere when there is a mob of Antifa outside your house threatening you and threatening your family. Who's responsible for egging these people on? Who's responsible for this timeline we're on now that every few days there's another incident that escalates things further, ratchets things up, and brings us seemingly closer to another American Civil War? With the exception of the Civil War and possibly the Revolutionary War, this is the period in history with the most intra-American, American-on-American violence. Who's responsible? It's people like this. This is Tim Wise. He describes himself as an anti-racism activist and writer. According to Wikipedia, he has trained teachers, corporate employees, nonprofit organizations, and law enforcement officers in methods for addressing and dismantling racism in their institutions. Dismantling racism. Isn't that great? He seems like a good guy. Tim was born in Nashville, and he is of Jewish descent. He was raised Jewish and attended synagogue. Ever since graduating college, he's dedicated his life to fighting racism and dismantling white privilege. On November 6th, Tim put out a great tweet, a real winner. He said, quote, "A good society is one where white nationalists are afraid to go outside, where Nazis are always wondering, is today the day they come for me? And an even better day is the day when the answer to that question is yes. Yes, sweetie. Today. Enjoy it. It's all downhill from here." A good society, according to Tim, is one where your political opposition is too afraid to even go outside. And an even better society is one where, if they do, people will, quote, come for them. What did you mean by this, Tim? I'm just a dumb goy with a low verbal IQ, so I'm having a hard time understanding. Can you please describe in detail what you meant by this and give some potential examples? Tim Wise is fantasizing about the day when white nationalists, or regular white people with conservative or right-wing opinions, are harassed and harmed the minute they step outside their homes. They're putting this all out in the open. They're saying explicitly what they want and what their plan is. As the old quote goes, do not forget that these people want you broke and dead. They want your kids raped and brainwashed, and they think it's funny. And even worse, they think it's just that political violence be done against you and your family for the great crime of you having the wrong opinions and you being white. In Piss Earth 2018, if you try to have a video series talking about current events from a pro-America nationalist perspective, you're banned from Patreon. You're not allowed to make a living. You're not allowed to have an income. But if you fire off some hot tweets where you fantasize about white people being doxxed and murdered outside their homes, that's good content. We'll see you on the corporate speaking circuit. From Matt Goldberg, Tucker Carlson reaped a shitty harvest. Don't spew hate on a nightly basis and expect to be treated as just a normal pundit. That's right, just listen to Mr. Goldberg. If Mr. Goldberg finds your opinions to be hateful or harmful, you deserve to have your family harassed and threatened and your home broken into. From Galen David, I wonder why all of these things happened to Tucker. I thought he was supposed to be able to spew his hate on national television without any repercussions. Indeed, well said. If you spew hate, it's only right that you face repercussions, including Antifa spewing through your doorway on their way to do God knows what to your wife and children. And for Matthew Iglesias, the problem wasn't that Tucker's wife was subjected to terroristic harassment. No, the problem was that this is just bad optics for the left. According to reports, before charging and trying to break the door down, one member of Antifa was quoted as saying, "Screw your optics, I'm going in." And according to a member of the DSA, terrorist violence is the, quote, correct action to take when neo-Nazis are given a national platform on cable TV every night and the government refuses to do anything. I love this line of thinking. There's a TV show out there that I hate, and the only thing I can do, I can't just shut it off, the only thing I can do is resort to terrorist violence. I can't stand Handmaid's Tale. I think Handmaid's Tale is awful. And the only good thing to come of it is the fact that these lefty women are dressing themselves up in the red gowns and white bonnets and making themselves look totally ridiculous on the national stage. But my reaction to Handmaid's Tale being on Hulu isn't to fly off the handle into a fit of rage and start knocking down doors. I just don't watch it. It's pretty simple. Anyways, we live in a society, and as political violence becomes more and more mainstream, it's not going to be a good one. My hope is that Trump can recognize this and use the Justice Department to begin RICO investigations into Antifa, unmasking them, and if they've been complicit or engaged in any violent activity, throwing the book at them. Maximum sentences. It's the only way to send a message that we're serious about prosecuting this in America, and we're not going to let this fly anymore. But my fear is that that won't happen, and that this will just continue to spiral out of control, building and building, ratcheting up further and further. And no hint of irony here, this is actually what I'm very concerned about. And the American right needs to realize that these people have no interest in peacefully cohabitating with us. They don't want to share a country with us. So why should we force it? If they are going to keep escalating and keep engaging in violence against us, why would we want to share a country with them? It's clear that America is fractured, and I'm beginning to believe it may be fractured beyond the point of repairing. We may, in the distant future, have to come to terms with exactly that. A national separation, a great divorce. And all I hope is that we can come to some resolution as peacefully and as quickly as possible. Thanks for watching the video, everybody. Make sure you hit the like button if you have not already, and subscribe.